Hello, everyone. Hello, Melissa Catherine. How are you?
Wait, I have to turn. I'm connecting you in to all the things. Hi, guys.
Hi, everyone. Happy Wednesday.
Oh my God, you look gorgeous.
Thank you so much. So do you.
You look gorgeous. Thank you.
I love your wild hair. It's a testament to
my spirit.
Yes. I always say that every time I really wear my hair very curly. It's like, your hair is very wild. I'm like, well, I'm very wild.
I know. I'm like, that totally fits my personality so much. It's funny though, like people see me and they're always like, you always look different. Like when you've got your hair straight, it's like one way, because I dress also very like, kind of like Sarah Jessica Parker in Sex and the City, like more eclectic. I put a lot of different pieces together. I'm not like preppy, like I don't have like one way, but people always tell me, they're like, you always look different. Like we never know what we're gonna get.
You do.
And I like it. I keep you guessing. Yes.
I love that about you. So I see we have someone from Colombia on the chat today. So this has just been such an expansive experience because we're getting people from all over the world.
All over. Hey, guys. Oh, my gosh.
So excited to chat today because this has been a really requested topic. And we're going to talk about anxiety, which I know is something that so many people really struggle with. And, you know, it affects all of us to some extent. I think that to say like, oh, I don't have anxiety, we all do. And I think we all deal with it in such a multitude of different ways that, you know, it's really something that we need to explore and talk about, because it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to live life with anxiety. You can learn to mitigate it and you can learn to manage it. And we're going to help you do that today. On Cosmic Tea, we're going to spill the tea.
I love it.
Yeah.
No, I love, so I think anxiety, especially now, I mean, God, between the shootings in Boulder, what's going on in the world, there's so much. And, you know, it's interesting. One of my clients had messaged me and she just goes, you know, sometimes when things happen, because she's really close to where the shootings were, she's like, I have a tendency to watch the news. And I was like, worst thing to do.
Yeah.
Worst thing to do. So just off the bat, we're going to get into anxiety. We're going to give you specific tools on how to combat anxiety and how to actually work with anxiety, why it exists, how it shows up in the body, what its true origin is, and how you can relate to it so it no longer overpowers you, but actually can be something that you transcend and have you know, as something that works with you and guides you to other things. Because anxiety is really just a learned protection mechanism, if you will. You know, you weren't born anxious. So the anxiety comes on because something happened in your life that was too much for your body to comprehend and take in. It was too much for you mentally. And so when that happens, our bodies, remember, our minds are set up for survival. So they're going to want to protect us and keep us out of harm's way. And our bodies, were animals by nature. So when it's like alert, 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 this is too much. What is going on? So whether, you know, it was, you know, you saw your parents get divorced, or you had an argument, or like a million different things that could start this. And this is why people are like, I never had anxiety my whole life until this happened. And it's always about going back to, okay, well, what was that point? But what happens is it's more of a protection mechanism. So I really want to start off here to really relate, because I know when we've had an experience where we feel like something, one, is something that keeps us from what we want. Two, it gets in the way of the things that we want. Then we can have a relationship with it of like, especially when you've been identified as an anxious person, there's a negative connotation around it. It becomes a part of your identity, as if something's deficient in you. So let's just take that all off the table, because you're perfect and nothing is wrong with you. And so really going, okay, this was just a protection mechanism, and maybe this anxiety, it doesn't need to stay with me, that I'm not who I was when this originated for me. and really understanding why it came in the body instead of wanting to run from it or just shut it down or numb it out. We really want to start to understand its presence. And that's why I really wanted to start in that place today. Liv, did you have anything that you wanted to share on that point?
Well, I think it's so important what you said about watching the news. I was actually just having this conversation with someone this morning, and they said, oh my gosh, this is happening and that is happening. And I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. And they're like, well, doesn't it come across your sort of like news feed and prompt you and, invite you in? And I'm like, yeah. And I go, delete, like, I don't welcome chaos into my home, into my space, into my life. And that's what that is. And I understand that news can be useful. I won't say valuable, but useful in certain contexts. But you have to be really careful because, again, it's just like the food you eat. If you have a goal and say your goal is peace and to not have anxiety, then you should not let in particles that are going to work against that. And that's exactly what the news does. The news is designed to bring you obscure pieces of information that are supposed to be intriguing and playing upon our senses of fear. Okay, I think we all understand that about the media. And I'm not saying that the news isn't always factual. I'm just saying that it's just like the food that you eat. If you want to lose weight, you should not eat McDonald's. You should put down the Snickers. That's what the news is to your psyche. News is junk food for your psyche and for your soul, okay? Because
Absolutely.
anything that you need to know, and this is sort of the way that I live my life, and again, I'm like, I'll never dispute that I'm a bit of a hippie, and I'm very like, just kind of like sunny in that way, but it's because I say to myself, okay, if there's something I need to know about, then I go after that and I research that and I become really well acquainted with that. And anything else, I'm just going to allow it to flow into my path. And it's just like the emails that arrive in your inbox. You can choose, oh, that's spam, that goes in trash, or that's important. I should keep that and put that in a folder and record that, because that's what this is. You're going to be subjected throughout your day to bits of information. And lots of that is going to be absolute rubbish, but it's stimulation. And it will seep in if you let it. So you have to almost protect yourself with this bubble of, okay, my intentions are I'm only going to let in thoughts that uplift me, and you can choose them and we'll teach you how. I'm only going to eat food that, I feel like fuels me. And we've had this conversation ad nauseum. If you think about your thoughts that you pick the same way that your foods that you eat, as I just outlined, you may as well eat laundry detergent, if you're not going to be careful about what you put into your body. So, I'm going to be careful and thoughtful about the foods that I eat. I'm going to be careful and thoughtful about the activities that I do. So it really begins with just pausing and adding an intention. And I would really suggest, as one of our first tips, that you make a list of intentions. And this can be day to day if you have the time and you find that that's useful for you, or this can also be something that you just sort of like have a broad outline. I just have a broad outline of like, I don't really care to deal with bullshit in any way, shape, or form throughout my day. I don't want junk food. I don't want junk people. And then even though those people come in and that food is presented to me, I can just go, nope. And it really allows me to select in every moment, and then over the course of time, how I want to live my life.
I love this. It's so true, because I always say negative thoughts cause negative actions, which cause us to do things that harm and hurt us. And that can, when I say that, harm and hurt us, you might be like, I'm not doing anything to harm and hurt me. I mean, choosing negative foods, choosing foods that are not of the highest good, that don't feel good, which, choosing thoughts that don't feel good. So what you choose to consume holistically in all aspects of your life is going to impact you either positively or negatively. So if you are prone to negative thoughts, sitting down and watching the news that's pointed towards all fear-based thinking, for the most part, about 90% of it is really, it's salacious, right? It's going to, then that is what's going to be presented and impressed upon your mind. which when we are ingesting things of that nature, then we don't feel as good in our bodies. And then we sit and choose to either stay the course of watching things that aren't actually fueling us or the things that we want. And that then filters into the foods we eat, all of a sudden the decisions that we make. Oh no, I was going to go on a run, but now I'm like really comfy on the sofa, and I was feeling really good all day and I ate really great, but now I'm doing this. And so really understanding that you get to choose at every moment of every day how you want to feel, and you are in complete control of that. So just starting to notice what you're ingesting in all realms will make a huge difference, and especially anxiety. And that also plays into the foods that you eat, right? Like if you're struggling with anxiety, the more you're consuming caffeine, the more heightened your emotional state. And the more you're going to be prone to feeling out of control with your thoughts and the things and how you're feeling in your body. Everything's going to be ramped up, right? It's a stimulant. So, that's one of the first things that when I have my clients come to me and they're prone to anxiety, I really will sit there and say, let's really remove caffeine from your body and start to notice how are you feeling. And that's green tea, matcha, honestly, all teas, except for herbal, and really looking at what else you're ingesting that's heightening that for you, because that right there, I mean, even if you don't struggle with anxiety, too much caffeine can have you feel like you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And, from a health perspective, biologically, there can also be some underlying deficiencies that can contribute to anxiety. There's now a lot of data that low levels of B12, which many, specifically Americans, are deficient in, can be a contributing factor to anxiety and depression, as well as low iron levels. And so there's two types of iron that, for those of you that are watching, next time you go to your PCP for a checkup, you should have your circulating iron checked, which is on like your regular blood panel, a CBC, or a CMP. And then you're going to have your stored iron, which is known as ferritin. And ferritin is sort of the reserve that we use if we were to get in an accident or, require surgery or something of that nature. So those are two levels of iron that I would have checked in your body, because, the circulating iron will get used up, especially if you're a woman and you go through your menstruation. And we need to be able to have a healthy store of ferritin to draw upon. So those are two levels, as well as a vitamin B12. And vitamin B12 is really interesting because it's found really largely in our GI tract. So it also contributes to serotonin production and all of those really feel-good hormones. So when that's low, which it is for many Americans, we just sort of feel like shit and we don't know why. Low energy levels, lethargy, that sort of a thing. And what happens is that many of us have poor GI health because we follow the standard American diet, and then we eat the McDonald's or the Mountain Dew. And I hope none of you do this when you're listening, but I'm just going to share it because many of us have poor GI health and don't know it. So the vitamin B12 really gets robbed daily because it's in such high demand. So those are two things I would really recommend checking with your PCP. And again, this is in no way a substitute for the medical advice of your primary care physician, but it is a tip and hopefully a helpful guideline that you can look into some things. Yeah, if you get into some really chronic anxiety where you're I've tried this, I've tried that. There are many holistic and I mean there's a causation for everything. As a rule of thumb, and in the world of medicine, if you ever go to your primary care and they can't provide you a reason why something is happening, you need to find a different provider, because there is always a reason why. There's always a causation in the body, and sometimes that's spiritual and emotional, and sometimes that's just biological and they haven't the time or the inclination to put the pieces together. Someone will. So advocate for yourself in terms of your own health. Always, always, always. But those are two things that really can be pretty large contributing factors. And there's massive amounts of data on that. You can Google that. And then as well, dietarily, sugar, as you were talking about with caffeine, you may not realize.
And I hate to say this, chocolate, guys. Caffeine and chocolate. Yeah.
gonna act like you just didn't see.
You don't have anxiety, you're fine.
I have anxiety about eliminating chocolate. So,
yeah, I'm good
actually
with it. But I will
something
say,
there.
a lot of people don't notice and really think, oh, well, cacao, and there's all these different, how good cacao is for you. So that's just one other thing that I would say, if you really are struggling with anxiety or things that are going on in the world are really getting to you, looking at those places, adding in the supplements, and doing what Liv just shared, and then also looking at your diet, cleaning up the junk food, eliminating sugar, and really looking at sources of caffeine will be highly supportive. And from the holistic standpoint as well, being a breathwork practitioner and working in the body, I love what Liv was saying about advocating for your health as well, guys. If you have a doctor that's just putting you right on meds and isn't actually getting to the root of something, really check in with yourself if that feels good for you or not. And if it doesn't, then please advocate for yourself or find another doctor. But just going straight to medication that's going to cause another set of symptoms is something you really want to be weary of. So ask your questions. Why do you want me on this? What are the side effects? Am I going to then get off of it? That's another thing that you'll see a lot now is, no, people aren't asking that. And then it's like, oh, now that you're on this for life. Any chemical being dependent on chemicals is something that, again, I believe there's a place for medicine, Western medicine versus Eastern. I'm holistic. You have to trust yourself first and foremost. Liv and I will always say, go by, but if something's not feeling good for you, be okay with that, using your voice and advocating. From the standpoint of the breath work that I was going to share, there's a powerful sequence. So I have a background as a hypnotherapist and also with breath work. And there's a really powerful sequence that I found that has helped many of my clients to actually heal from anxiety and be able to connect with it. And really over time, putting this into practice has been so powerful for them in eradicating that. So first and foremost, one is removing the identity, and really, really just going like, that is not my identity. Like, I don't need to say I'm an anxious person. I don't need to identify as somebody that having anxiety. So that's really one. And then two, really looking at what was the root cause. When did that start? Obviously implementing everything Liv so beautifully shared as well. And then these are just other holistic tools and things that you can do in the moment. Notice where the anxiety lives in your body. Is it in your throat? Is it in your belly? Is it in your head? Is it in your back? Where is it located? And close your eyes and breathe into it. And instead of just trying to numb it out right away or push it down, get in a space with it and start to give it details. What color is it? Is it solid? Is it a mass? Is it a circle? Is it a person? When you close your eyes, what does that anxiety represent to you? Where do you feel it? And what is that? And then have a dialogue with it. What is it you want me to know? Right? What messages do you have for me? We often have pain in the body and different things that keep coming up, and we just mask them with medications, or we go and do other things to numb out from it. But in essence, we are always being guided and can be given actual answers. And it does take time if you have been disconnected from yourself, connecting in, but be in the practice of that. And you can say, and I guide my clients to say, you have no truth. You're not real. You have no hold over me. I don't need you anymore. You protected me once. Thank you. I have a whole other set of tools. And what you can do is in the breath work sequence is it's 5 deep breaths in through the nose, suspend the breath for 5, which allows for calming of the nervous system and for the conscious mind to take a back seat and the subconscious mind to take hold as you do this, and then breathing out slowly for 5 out of the mouth. And you want to do that in a repetition of about 10 rounds. And trust me, you will feel incredibly different. And when you can pause and do this, even if you just are noticing you're at work or something happens with a partner and you're just in that space and you're feeling anxious or you get some news, Just even if you can just try it in the moment, hand on heart, hand on belly, breathing in, suspend the breath, exhale out, just going, okay, I'm okay. I am good. I am safe in my body. This anxiety, I do not need you anymore. I am good. I am safe right here. And reminding yourself, most of all, that you are safe is so much what the anxiety is about that has created a presence in your body. And so I just wanted to share that piece.
I love that. So that's 5, 5, 5 to help people remember. So 5 inhales, hold for a count of 5, and then exhalations for 5. So the way that you can remember that, 5, 5, 5.
Yeah.
If you really get into counting the breaths, this is something that I do. I'm a very nervous flyer. And I will have anxiety and I have to travel a lot, you know? So I've used these techniques and they really work. The grounding in the present now is so important. And, you know, a technique that I have used that has been really, it's worked really well for myself and for some of my patients is that there comes a point with chronic anxiety. And I'm not talking about like in the middle of an anxiety attack necessarily, but chronic anxiety where you can have this buildup of like, what if this, what if that, what if that? Again, all that does is nothing useful. It's bringing you out of your present now, which is the only pivot point that you have of power. You cannot control what has happened. And what has yet to be, and it depends on the now. So the now is where all of your power is, and that's where you should focus all of your energy. So really, what is actually happening to me now? And I want you to take, again, it's that 5. It's like find 5 things around you in your environment that you can touch, that you can feel. Then you can use and bring your brain into a more tactile sensation to switch off that fight or flight response, which is that adrenaline that, you know, we become so accustomed to. And then at some point, actually turning to your anxiety and those anxious thoughts of the what if, and saying, okay, and sort of stepping into that and saying, do your worst. I'm afraid of this happening. Let's actually flesh out that thought. Yeah. Let's flesh it out. You know, is it this person not liking me? Is it me getting fired from my job? Is it, you know, this, that, or the other? Whatever it is, turn to it, face it, and then say, okay, do your worst. Let's walk through this. Let's walk through this. What's the worst thing that could possibly happen? And maybe that idea feels like it gives you more anxiety in the interim or in the moment, but as a long-term, you know, sort of strategy, it can really work because you can incrementally pick off aspects of your anxiety and dissect them and really just sort of flesh them out. Okay, what if I, you know, what if I lost my job? What would that look like? Okay. And as you talk yourself through that, you know, you will come to the end of that and really recognize that you would be okay. You would be okay. You would figure it out. And so, you know, sometimes just that aversion to a thought or to a situation or to an outcome can be anxiolytic in and of itself. So provokes anxiety. And I love what you said about the medication, because it is true that anti-anxiolytic medications, so medications used to treat anxiety and anxiety attacks, can be a very good bridge for stopping the attack, right? But then there's work that has to be done surrounding it. And that's really, you have to work with a provider that also helps you do the work surrounding it. And Melissa and myself also can be an augmentation to that. But if you are relying just on pharmaceuticals or just on a medication, that will plateau at some point in your system. Yes. Okay, I can assure you of that. And many of them have a very, very short half-life. So it will not be as long as you probably think that it will be. What then happens, and I'm not advocating that you stop altogether cold turkey either, because once you stop, you can get what's called rebound anxiety, which is where your brain has been on vacation, not having to produce as much serotonin, and then all of a sudden it's like call back into action. And it's like calling up that retired quarterback who's been, you know, guzzling beer and eating potato chips for, you know, 2 seasons to all of a sudden playing the Super Bowl tomorrow. It's like, huh, what? You know, like that's sort of like your brain is like, give us a second, you know? So that's why I say to you that even if you've chosen pharmaceuticals as something that can be a bridge to you, which there is no judgment there, I really believe that everyone has a specific and subjective and relative path that works. I just want you to do the things around it so that you are supporting that effort and you're not relying on that as being your entire treatment plan. So the mindfulness tools that we use and the breathing exercises are really, really important. And there's loads of those. Again, Melissa and myself can help you with also. But yeah, I wanted to add that just as an aside, because I think that's a really common misconception is people say, well, you know, I have this pill, you know, that's like my safeguard against anxiety, and I just don't want you to rely on that. Because you can do this. There's so much data. There's so much that you can rewire your brain. And if it's a deficiency, we can identify it. We can, you know, supplement that. You can address this.
No, it's so true. I mean, there's so many things. Like I had asthma growing up, and I know this, we were talking about anxiety, but like I was diagnosed with ADD. And, you know, it was ADD when like no one had ADDs. And my dad was just like, my daughter's not going to be on medication. Like, you've got to learn how to focus. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't a place, and I'm not saying that those medications don't help, but having not, you know, I didn't really think like, oh no, I'm going to go get my medication. You know, I was like, okay, I really had to learn to regulate my breath. I learned and healed myself of asthma by taking dairy out. So I'm not saying that I didn't use my inhalers. I'm not saying like I had asthma, like used to go to the hospital, you know, and it's fascinating though, our bodies are so resilient. They're just so amazing, guys. And they're meant to do what you want them to do. They're meant to function at an optimal level. And when you do, really, your brain is a muscle. You can train it. You know, I always say, you know, a trained mind is a quiet mind. And so I had to sit there and really learn, okay, well, how am I focusing? Like, oh, all my friends are like, people are taking like Adderall, Ritalin. Like, I'm like, I've got to figure. And I really sat and did more like brain games. Like it was you know, I'm not saying that's for everybody. I'm just sharing, like, to piggyback off what Liv was saying. You train but it is a partnership with yourself. And I think we've gotten lazy. This is a whole other thing.
We for sure have gotten lazy.
I think
that is a whole other episode. You're
lazy. Right. It's like, oh, there's a pill for weight loss. Okay, there's a pill for this. Okay, there's a pill to help me sleep. Okay, oh yeah, I'm depressed. I'll go on this. And again, I am not poo-pooing medications, and I'm not poo-pooing that depression's a real thing. Please, I am not saying that at all. And medication has its place. But I do think that we've lost that a lot of this, you know, we can go in and, you know, taking ownership of our bodies and taking ownership of our minds and taking ownership of, you know, what we're putting into it. Like everyone's like, oh, anti-aging, I'll just go do this. And it's like, okay, well, have you looked at your diet though first? Like, yes, we can all go do those things. I'm not against any of it. I'm sure I will do things. I'm just saying, like, there's a beautiful, beautiful thing to be awakened to when you say, wait a minute, I get to be, I'm in the driver's seat. This is my body, and my body wants to work with me. And I just get to check in on what that can be. Am I giving myself everything that I can before I'm turning to all of these quick fixes? So that's really what I want to share.
I couldn't agree more. I feel like this could be and should be a series, because there's really no cookie cutter answer, which again is the opposite of sort of how Western medicine approaches it. Takeaways from this: if you're having anxiety, there is a reason, and we need to flesh out the reason, because if we can't identify why it's happening, it will replicate. And you may be able to quiet that with medication or whatever. Some people use alcohol and drugs, which is another form of self-medication. So, you know,
notice if you're getting really dependent on that red wine at night.
Some people use food, you know, as their antidepressant. But it is a drug. It's the most widely over abused drug, as we talked about, and making sure that you are aware of what you're allowing into your body and into your mind and into your energy and into your life. You know, that's really important. That's really key and critical. So take a really strong, honest look at what you are consuming on all levels, on a daily and, you know, on a chronic basis. And from there, I feel like it's really important to have a conversation with your primary care about what are the long-term end goals of any treatment that you might be under. But there is a reason for your anxiety, and you can get to the root of it, and you can actually neutralize it and heal it. It happens every single day. So there's absolutely no reason to believe that you cannot be one of those success stories as well.
Absolutely. And just to a few of the things that we talked about was identifying when the anxiety started for you. If you just go, I've had it my whole life. There was a point you were not born anxious. There was a point that it started. So notice how many stories you have where it's just like, no, I've just been this my whole life.
Yeah.
You weren't. So getting to the root, locating it in the body, dialoguing with it, as Liv so brilliantly shared, really asking yourself, what's the worst that can happen here? What's the real fear here? What would happen if this did happen? Is it right? And really understanding that a lot of the anxiety is about future tripping off of things that have not occurred. And then doing that breath work, 5, 5, and 5, while adding in and looking at the supplementations that from the B12 to the iron, and really removing caffeine, sugar, and looking at really cleaning up what you're ingesting on all levels. So we hope that this was so helpful for you. We know we shared a lot. As always, we love to be with you on Cosmic Tea. DM us your questions, DM us your topics. We are here in full support of you. And
we'll be back next week to make more magic. And if you have any suggestions on topics, please email, DM, as Melissa said. We're here to help. But
yes,
I always love this. This is
I love it too.
Probably one of the favorite parts of my week, for sure.
Oh my God, it's mine too. And guys, every Wednesday we are here for Cosmic Tea on Instagram Live. Share it with your friends. Invite everyone you know. If this episode supported you or you have somebody in mind, sharing is caring, please send this to them. Let them know that there are other ways and things that can support them. This is a really, really pertinent topic, especially right now. And we are here to help in every way that we can with the expertise and experience that we have. And we will see you next week, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Instagram Live for Cosmic Tea. Invite everyone you know.